If you want to start editing your own footage today inside of Final Cut Pro, you have found the perfect video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to import media, edit media, and also export media. I'll also be breaking down the entire layout of Final Cut Pro, so next time that you do go edit your video, you shouldn't have any issues when it comes to importing, editing, and exporting. What's going on YouTube? My name is Isaiah, I'm with Arcani, and let's just jump right in. So before we get started today, we're actually going to need to import our footage. Now, if you have a standardized camera, you may have something like an SD card, or if you're using an iPhone, you can actually airdrop your files right onto the computer. Now, as any experienced editor would tell you, organization is key when it comes to making these projects. So we're going to get started right here on our desktop, and I've actually already started downloading a couple of files. So we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to name this folder New Tutorial. So we're going to go into our Finder, and my files that I just downloaded are in Downloads, and we're going to click and drag and bring that right over to New Tutorial. So our files are in a new folder, and we're going to open up Final Cut. Okay, so this is what Final Cut should look like once you first open it, and we're going to go to File, New, Library. Now for the library, we're actually going to place it in the same folder that all of our other stock footage is in. So ours is on the desktop, New Tutorial, and we're going to name this Library Tutorial. Now that we have our library, it's going to automatically create an event for us, and in this event is where we're going to put all of our files, stock footage, anything that's going onto your video. So we're going to go to File, Import, Media, and we're going to go to our desktop, into our folder New Tutorial, and we're going to grab these two clips. And this is an important area, so we're going to add to the existing event. We're going to make sure to leave the files in place because you don't want Final Cut creating new files in a just random location. So let's keep everything neat and keep it in that same folder. And the keywords, going to leave it blank. Analyze video, I leave it blank. For transcode, I'm going to create a proxy media. Now, what a proxy media is pretty much if your computer is slow or if you just have really big files, creating proxy media will tend to just lower the size of those files and lower the resolution a bit just for editing purposes. So when you are editing, things go a lot smoother rather than just trying to edit some large footage like a piece of 4K footage. So we're going to create a smaller file just so we can have smooth editing, and H.264. I tend to leave everything else unchecked and how it is, and we're just going to go ahead and click import. So now that we have our two files here, we're going to go ahead and go File, New, Project, and we're going to create our project. This is the name of our video. So Tutorial Video, and we're going to keep it 1080p HD. If you are using something like vertical video, say for TikTok or Instagram Reels, they do have formats already preset in here for vertical video, or if you're using 4K or 5K or even 8K and 360 footage, everything can be selected in here as a format, and you can even select your own custom if you want to have very specific aspect ratios when it comes to your footage. I'm going to use 1920 by 1080 standard for YouTube and 29.97 frame rates per second. I'm going to most likely drop that down to 23, which is just standard for myself. I'm into film, and we're going to press OK. So we're going to click and drag both of our files to the timeline. So here in the timeline is where your video essentially gets made. Over here is where you have a list of your libraries, events, and you have your project here with all of your files that you're going to have downloaded for your project, and we can get started. So this is going to be your property window right over here. So let's go ahead and start out by clicking our first clip on the timeline, and over here you'll see composting, transform, crop, distort, and stabilization, rolling shutter, and special conform, rate conform. So with composting, this is everything that's going to modify the clip. So we can change the blend. This works if you have something underneath it or above the clip, we just have one clip, nothing is above or below it, so we can change the opacity to make it less apparent or see-through. Transform, this is where we modify the position and the view, so we could move our clip to the left or to the right. We can move it up and down. We can scale it to be bigger or smaller. For crop, we can crop from the left, we can crop from the right, and top and bottom. Now with distort is just changing the perspective of things. So here you can distort the bottom left, and here you can distort the bottom right on the X and Y axis, depending on what kind of look you're going for. This is for, like, say if I wanted to make this image look like as if it was on the floor, you could maybe take like the top right and the top left and just try to change the perspective of it. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and go back, and stabilization is exactly what it says it is. If you have shaky footage, you can just click this, and what Final Cut will try to do is try to stabilize your video. If you are on a tripod, it's not going to really do much, but stabilization can be a hit or miss. You just got to be very specific, and sometimes I actually plan on using stabilization. So say if I shoot on a gimbal, I'll plan on using stabilization. It works better if your clip is already somewhat stable. We're going to move over to the next panel right here, which is the color correction panel. So if you click right here, you'll see color board, color wheels, color curves, and hue saturation curves. Now in here, they pretty much do all the same thing. They change the color, they modify the exposure, things like that. The default color correction is color board. So this is what you'll see right here. You have color, saturation, and exposure. So let's start out with exposure. All of these knobs modifies a different thing. So this is highlights, this is midtones, this is shadows, and this is global. And in saturation, you're gonna have the same exact knobs for highlights, if you want the highlights to be more saturated, for the midtones, shadows, and overall image, global. Now when it comes to the overall color, all of these are the same, but you can actually change the color of the highlights, midtones, shadows, and global. And that's pretty much it for the next for the color correction panel. Now when you start to get into the different adjustment layers, you can go to color wheels, and you'll see it's pretty much the same thing, but you have it's a different way of changing everything. So here you can change your midtones very specifically. You can change the saturation of your midtones and things like that. Depending on, you know, once you actually get into coloring a bit more, you'll understand color wheels, color curves, and hue saturation curves. But today we're just going over the basics. And we'll click the next panel. This is where you'll find the information of the clip itself. So let's say you shoot on a Sony A7, you'll see that information all in here. You'll see the frames per second that the clip is in, and anything that you need to know about the clip and when it was shot, it will be right here. Alright, so now we'll actually get into effects and transitions. Now if you press this button here, you'll actually see the effects pop out, and you'll see a list of effects. On my screen there may be some third-party plugin effects, so you may not have every single thing that is here, but you should have majority, because I don't really add too many plugins. So this is the color correction, so we'll go to color, and here they have preset effects that you can just add. And if you see, you can see if you hover your mouse right over them, you'll actually see certain effects take place. So it kind of gives you a preview live for tint, sepia. So let's go ahead and add colorize. And the way that you add it is you can have your clip selected and you can double click. And here is where you'll be able to modify each effect. So let's say I wanted to change the color to yellow, and I wanted to change this color to black or blue. every single effect should have modifications, so you could always modify. Typically you can always modify effects right here as soon as you add them. And say if you want to remove an effect, you would just press delete. So we'll go ahead and do one more. So we can go ahead and press black and white. So here, very simple effect, black and white, and you could change the intensity of how much you want and also the color. Now effects worked in a very similar way. So right here by where we click the tab for effects, right beside it you'll find transitions. So transitions work in a very similar way when it comes to applying, but instead of applying to just one clip, you're actually going to apply in the middle. So as you can see, the way our clips go from one to the other is a very hard cut. There is no type of transition at all. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a transition and drag it right to the middle. And if you can see here, there is a little gray tab, and what that is the duration of the transition. So if I play it back now, you'll see that the clip fades into the next clip, or technically crosses off. So you can make that transition shorter, or you can extend it and make it longer. Depending on what your project needs, it's up to you. Now, you will see a bunch of transitions here as well, and say if you don't like that transition, you can always go to another transition and simply drag it on top of that, and it'll keep the same duration of that transition, but just change the way it transitions. So it is a cool way for you to just experience and just kind of go through transitions to see when exactly you'll really need them for each project. Now that's pretty much everything that you need to know when it comes to the basics, but down here you'll actually see these little buttons right underneath your viewer, and I'm going to show you what these buttons means. So if I press this down arrow, you'll see transform, crop, and distort. And what this is pretty much exactly what I showed you in the beginning. Transform, crop, and distort. But here, you're actually able to change it manually with your mouse. So you could take your mouse and modify it just like that. And same thing with crop and transform. So here, we can go to distort. And instead of clicking this little value level over here, you can actually grab these little blue tabs and modify a clip exactly to how you want it to look. So say if I wanted this to look like a floor, I can drag it somewhat similar to this, and then I'll just press done. And now that is the new way that that clip shows up. I'm going to go ahead and reset that. The last tab right here is where you'll be able to actually speed up clips and slow down clips. So if I want to just go here fast, and you can make it 2 times as fast, 4 times as fast, or higher. So I'm gonna click 4 times, so now you'll see it's playing back way quicker. And you can also just take this little tab right here and kind of modify it yourself if you want to slow it down or speed it up just as much as you want. So once you're done editing your video, you want to head over to the top right, and you want to press this button right here and press export file. So this is the information, what you would name your video. And we're going to settings. These are my export settings. I would press video and audio. H.264 is a great video codec, a small file at high resolution. Our resolution, we can't change anything. It's just notifying us what it'll be. And that's pretty much it. You'll press next. And we're going to actually export in the same exact folder. So we're going to go back to our desktop, new tutorial, and tutorial video. We're going to click save, and as we're saving, you'll notice in the top left under background task, you'll see the video actually rendering, and once it is done, it should pop up immediately just like this, and you're essentially done. So there it is, pretty much everything that you need to know about the basics of Final Cut I explained in this video, and if you need to come back and watch this video again, you're more than welcome to do so. Now of course practice is key, so I do recommend you do try out and just editing very simple clips or just stock footage off the internet. Now I will have more tutorials explaining how to use Final Cut more thoroughly, because in such a short video, okay, one of my lights just went out randomly, but in the future I will have more Final Cut Pro tutorials here. If you do have anything specific that you would like to know, please comment below. Now if this video did help you out, please smash that like button below and subscribe if you like. Thank you for tuning in.